Cheddars steps on board to be Kyle Busch's primary sponsor, and ESPN will host the SRX series next year. And what does that mean for NASCAR's upcoming TV contract? Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host, Alex Lambert, and happy holidays. It is currently December 13th, which means we have 67 days until the 2023 Daytona 500. So the countdown is on. The countdown begins. Only 12 days till Christmas, so time is flying, and it won't be long. We'll be back on track in Daytona. But we have a couple of big storylines that I want to talk about today. First off, I want to talk about Kyle Busch's sponsorship deals, and then I want to talk about the SRX moving to Thursday night on ESPN. I think that's really interesting, and I'll get into that later on in the show. But let's talk about Kyle Busch's new sponsorship deal. Primary sponsor for Kyle Busch will be Cheddars next season. I know they had a deal already with RCR, Richard Childress, and Tyler Reddick last year and a couple years before that, along with many other sponsors. But I'm sure Kyle Busch coming in, you might have had to step the contract up a little bit more. Might have had to pay just a little bit more than you were paying Tyler Reddick. No disrespect to Tyler Reddick. He's a great race car driver, but he's not really as well known, not as popular or polarizing as Kyle Busch yet. So Kyle Busch is obviously one of the more popular drivers in NASCAR, and with that comes maybe a little bit higher price tag. So I'm sure Cheddars paid a little bit more. They're going to be the primary sponsor. It's actually interesting. They seem on board, which is definitely a lot of fun. I've never been to a Cheddars myself. I think there's one like 20 minutes from here. I might have to go try it out sometime now that there's a sponsor, but I've never been to one myself. But it's just interesting. You know, they've been posting all over Twitter. Here's the race car, by the way. I mean, I think the race car looks pretty good. It's really different compared to what we've seen. Kyle Busch in a bright yellow or light blue M&M's car for the last 15 years. But I like the car, the black color, and then the tannish color, the orange tannish color there for Cheddars. That's what you're going to see on track a lot of the time. We also have the Alsco car, Alsco uniforms. You can see that car green and black there as well. So I think both of the cars look pretty good. I'm excited to see both of those on track in the 2023 season. Excited to see him hopefully win in a few of those upcoming. We'll have to continue to watch that. But here's a post right here from Cheddars. They're actually doing 12 days of connections to Kyle Busch for Christmas. So Cheddars obviously all in on the sponsorship. Like I said, probably these sponsors had to step up just a little bit to afford Kyle Busch. But they all wanted to stay on board. There's a report from Adam Stern that explains, he actually says all the sponsors on the car. That's obviously Cheddars, 3CHI, and then of course Levino, Alsco Uniforms, which is I think going to be a primary sponsor for a couple of races this season. And then of course you have Bet MGM, which is going to stay on board as well. And also Adam Stern reported what was interesting to me, Kyle Busch is almost sold out of sponsorship slots on the race car for the number 8 car for next season. So that's definitely good news for Kyle. I think a lot of those sponsors were already with Richard Childress Racing. Kyle Busch might have brought in a few of those. But obviously Cheddars being a primary sponsor is great. Great for him. And it'd be excited to see what they do in the future. It's going to be a really exciting season for Kyle Busch upcoming. And I think that's obviously the sponsorship deal is a big part of that. It's exciting to see what will come out of that moving forward into next season. You know, I would have never thought a year ago. It was a year ago, I think in December, we found out M&M's wasn't coming back. I didn't know I'd be looking at this race car a year later, but I'm excited for it. I think there's a lot of good things to come out of this. I've not ordered a Kyle Busch or Richard Childress Racing hat or shirt or any merchandise yet, but I will definitely have it here before the Daytona 500. So excited for that. Let's talk about the SRX series moving to ESPN. So the last couple of seasons, I believe there's been 2 seasons of the SRX. That's the Tony Stewart Racing League. The Superstar Racing Experience is what they call it. You get a bunch of old school drivers and then, of course, a few younger drivers to race these stock cars or sports cars. I don't know, whatever these kind of cars are. You can see the picture of it here. And they'll run on some local short tracks. And they have a couple of dirt races every season. So it's really exciting. I've watched a couple of them myself. They're really enjoyable. It's really a good... it's really fun to watch on a Saturday night. But they are moving it to ESPN. It's been on CBS for the first 2 seasons of this series. They're going to move it to ESPN for 2023 for the 3rd season, and they're going to move it from Saturday night to Thursday night. Now, I really like that deal because Saturday night, people are out doing stuff. Nobody's really in watching TV quite as much. I mean, unless it's college football. That's why NASCAR is moving more to Sunday afternoon than Saturday night because the TV ratings are just so low. I like the I like the decision to move it to Thursday night. That gives us something to watch on Thursday night. I mean, hey, stay up late on Thursday night to watch some racing. That sounds really fun to me, the SRX series. I think it will do good on Thursday night. But what's really interesting to me is that they're going to put this, and by the way, that starts on July the 13th. That's a summer racing series. I think everybody watching knew that. But it does start on July 13th this season. That will be on ESPN. I think the most interesting part about this is ESPN is coming on board with a motorsport or a oval racing or more of a stock car racing motorsport, which we have not seen. ESPN obviously plays many F1 races a season. I don't know if they have the full schedule yet, but I know they play many F1 races in the United States. And once again, I'm not a huge Formula One fan myself, so I don't watch all of those, but I think most of those, if not all of them, are on ESPN. And then, of course, ESPN was a major NASCAR sports network for a long time. All throughout the 90s, ESPN and NASCAR were like this together. ESPN played many races, almost a great majority of the schedule. And then, of course, they had a TV contract all the way through 2014. But when that 2014 contract ended, NASCAR went over to the current one we have, which is just Fox and just NBC. ESPN, we haven't seen anything really come out of them about NASCAR. I mean, on the website, I think half of the statistics about NASCAR are incorrect. They fired everybody that works with NASCAR or for NASCAR. They don't really mention it on SportsCenter anymore. So NASCAR and ESPN have really split paths. They're not really close together right now. But there has been some talks. There has been some rumors with this upcoming TV contract, which will start in 2025, that ESPN wants to hop on board. And I think that's interesting. I think that's something that I would not be totally against. I think ESPN has more of a younger demographic viewership. Younger people watch ESPN more than I think NBC or USA or Sports on USA or Fox Sports 1. ESPN is the primary sports network, and I think if you can get NASCAR on there, that would help with TV viewership for sure because it's the most watched sports network. But I think it could also help with the younger demographic. In college town, on the TVs in a restaurant or TVs in a bar, what do they usually have on? ESPN, SportsCenter. If they're showing NASCAR, that could definitely help potentially bring in a younger demographic, or at least put NASCAR out to a younger demographic. So I would like to see it. Obviously, like I said, this isn't huge breaking news. This isn't a guarantee that they're going to sign on. I don't even know if this is really even a signal that ESPN would want to sign on to NASCAR, because obviously SRX is completely different from NASCAR and way cheaper to host than NASCAR price-wise for them. But I do think it's exciting that ESPN is getting involved in motorsports, and I would like to see maybe one day they will return to NASCAR. I remember when I was really little watching NASCAR races on ESPN. That used to be a lot of fun. But that's really all I have to talk about today. I just wanted to get those two topics out of the way. I wanted to talk about those two interesting topics. Obviously, Kyle Busch, the sponsors coming in, and then, of course, the SRX series moving over to ESPN for 2023, which is really exciting, and we'll see what happens in the future. By the way, that TV contract, in about a year from now, we're probably going to know or have a good idea, maybe a little bit more than a year from now, but we're going to have a good idea not too much longer from now who's going to be a part of that 2025 TV deal, and that's going to be really fun to keep track of for sure, because it's coming up just a few more years. So that's it. That's all there is to talk about. And of course, on this Tuesday afternoon, let's get rowdy.